Hello, I'm Max Rippington, and this is Conor Sandiford. We are both ex STFC apprentices who went through the 4-year apprenticeship scheme, both of which studied electrical engineering. So this is a bit about our experience and what we did in the apprenticeship scheme and where we are now.
So in the very first year, well, the first year for us in particular, the scheme's changed slightly since we finished because it was a little while ago now. When we began, our first actual year was at BMW in Oxford because they've had an apprenticeship scheme that they have their own apprentice training building that they've had set up for a while. So we kind of joined them with that because it's a very successful scheme. So we kind of did our first year learning the basics of different engineering skill sets. These included things such as electrical work. They had electrical practice boards where you could learn lighting circuits and kind of some domestic electrical work. We had hand fitting areas. We also worked with a lot of machining. So we had like milling machines and lathes and different equipment like that. We spent around roughly 3 months in each of those distinctions because when anyone applies for these schemes, you may decide you want to do mechanical engineering. But during the first year, because you get to do the basics in different types of engineering, you may realise that you might be better suited to something else. But for us, we both realised that electrical engineering was the path that we wanted to follow. As interesting as it was being at BMW at the manufacturing plant, we actually now do our first year of training over at Culham because Culham's setup is very similar to what we have here. And it's better suited to coming into this kind of environment as of our second year.
So I left school at 16 and went straight into the apprenticeship scheme. This was with 10 other people I'd never met before or never really come across. So a good way to get to know each other. You go to an out of bounds trip in Devon, which is Skern Lodge. Out here, you do a week's activities or really sort of fun outdoor activities such as kayaking, abseiling, high ropes, orienteering, all sort of good team bonding activities, really, just to sort of make friends, get to know each other. So when you come back on the site and you start your work up at BMW or RAL, you sort of know each other, and it just makes a good team bond, really.
So as I was saying, when you come back onto site for your second year, it can be a bit daunting because we've got a lot, especially at STFC, we have a lot of different locations, different groups that all do different things. And much like the scheme, you don't come onto site thinking, I want to go to this particular area and work here. So we actually offer an opportunity of placements. So this gives you the chance to go around the different groups that we have, the different departments that we have on site that all do completely different things. Of course, with all the main goal with research and innovation in mind. And this gives you an idea of kind of maybe what you might want to do more particularly, as well as it's still building that ongoing skill set that you've already built on in the first year. In this year, you do still do a 1-day placement a week back at Culham, but for us was BMW, where you carry on with your NVQ work and your BTEC work. So you keep going with that alongside. So some of the areas that I personally did my placements in was the central laser facility, the ISIS beamline, Cryogenics, rail space where I now ended up working, and the diamond light source was also a placement that we had, and we all did around 7 months, I believe it was a placement. But we realised, because that's quite a long time to be in one location, that although it's good that you do get a lot of time to kind of get an understanding of what they do in that area, it's quite nice to have now. We offer 3-month placements, so you can actually see a bit more of the site before deciding where you kind of maybe want to end up working. So this is an example of one of the first jobs I did at a placement, and this was a placement on the ISIS beamline, and the group were called Power Supplies. And essentially what this enclosure that you can see that I'm working on here was kind of to update one of the technologies they had on the beamline, which was they had a system of cooling the magnets on the beamline. The system was quite difficult because you actually had to go inside of the beamline areas and past all the kind of security setups to get inside to kind of power these magnets, which now, thanks to this enclosure that I was working on with all the team of engineers that were there, they can now remotely cool the magnets in that area without having to go inside. And this was a great job for me because as part of our MVQ, we need to tick off a lot of work and to show that we can use different types of electrical skill sets in particular. So this job offered multiple of those, from cable terminations to labeling to working in close small enclosures to working with trunking and PLCs, and the list goes on. And then throughout the rest of the jobs you do on these kind of placements, you can tick off those different skill sets as you go, really.
So this is another typical apprentice job, which I worked on a few years ago in the Cryogenics department. This was quite a bespoke power supply unit, which required various different voltages, which you couldn't buy off the shelf, basically. So we had to come up with this design. As an apprentice, you are expected to design the enclosure, purchase all the parts and manufacture it as well, do all the tests, and then deliver it to the customer, much like you would in any other outside world job, really. So yeah, as I say, you're given quite a lot of responsibilities as an apprentice. The help is always there, though, if you need it. If you need any questions or any help at all, then there's always people out there to give you a hand. Luckily enough, 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to go to CERN over in Geneva. 3 apprentices were selected, and we went out there for 6 weeks to experience just a different culture, a different type of work, basically, which we wouldn't experience at STFC or in the UK alone. So 3 of us flew out to Geneva for 6 weeks, and we got to have various different tours around CERN. We got to work in various different departments, and of course we had a lot of free time in the evenings and weekends. So the photo of us in the middle is of us up at Mont Blanc.
So another important part about particularly why I chose the apprenticeship scheme when it was offered to me was the opportunity for further education, because I went to sixth form when I left school, but following sixth form, I didn't choose to go to university because at the time there wasn't something or a degree that I particularly felt strongly enough that I wanted to do. And I found out about the STFC apprenticeship scheme and the fact that while you're, of course, getting paid and learning, there is obviously these other opportunities for further education alongside your training. And for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. So that was one of the reasons I kind of applied to come onto the apprenticeship scheme. So to give a kind of quick breakdown of kind of what we've been through in an education kind of standpoint, the first 2 years we spent doing our BTEC and NVQ level 3. So that was the first 2 years of our apprenticeship. Following that, we went on to a HNC for the second 2 years, which was offered at Abingdon and Wyntley College. And then following that, by the time myself and Max had actually left the apprenticeship scheme and joined RAL Space, they kindly offered to actually allow us to do a HND on top of the HNC, which we already had. And following that, we've since done a degree in electrical and electronic engineering design, which we actually completed last September. And the HND was actually partially funded by the apprenticeship scheme as well. So even once you finish the scheme, the support and outreach is actually still there from all the people that you've been working with, which is another amazing point, really, why it appealed to me.
So our current roles at RAL Space are environmental test technicians. For the last 3 years, we've been working on the 2 5-metre vacuum chambers, which we have here, as you can see pictured top right. This has involved all of the work involved from just being metal cans, basically, when they were first installed. So you've had to install all the harnessing, all the control systems we've had to make, all the panels inside the chamber. These are basically radiators and coolers, which can make the instruments go up to 120 degrees and down to minus 180 degrees. Currently, we're just moving into test operators. So we're just learning how to actually operate the chambers so we can actually test satellites once they go in them.
So another really exciting point about being at RAL Space is that we've got a lot of exciting future projects, and this links quite well into the apprenticeship scheme, because when it comes down to choosing a place to work at the end, there's so many different environments and different projects, different areas to work in, and one reason to me that I wanted to work in RAL Space, and it really stood out, was because of all the upcoming projects that they spoke to me about that they're going to be working on. And one of these key upcoming projects is the National Satellite Test Facility, or the NSTF. And on the picture in the red circle is our new large satellite test chamber, which is just being put into this brand new building over the road from where we currently are now. And to give you an idea of the scale, the two identical chambers to the left of that picture are the chambers that Max just spoke you through on the previous slide, where you can see for a scale that we're working inside those. And there are 5 by 6 meter chambers, and this new one is going to be a ginormous 7 by 12 meter chamber. And this is going to essentially give us the ability to test a full scale satellite in one thermal vacuum test, rather than breaking it down into separate bits of flight hardware. So for apprentices that will be coming to work with us within certainly the next 12 to 24 months, they're going to get to see the start of what's going to be a really exciting project. And for me, that would have been something as a 16-year-old or 18-year-old coming out of sixth form, that would have been a really, really key thing for me to want to get involved with an apprenticeship scheme or job like this.
So as Conor mentioned, myself and Conor both finished our degree a couple of months ago, and this is a photo of us graduating. This was all funded by RAL Space here, so a lot of people get a bit worried with the apprenticeship scheme, which you're going to miss out on uni and you're not going to get your degree. They think you're just going to give you the bare minimum training and just sort of send you on the way into the world of work, which has been completely untrue here at STFC, as they've kept on pushing us really and pushing our learning and seeing how far we can go really. So we've just completed our degree with the option of continuing to the masters. So thank you very much for listening, and if anybody's got any questions, then
thank you.
Fire away.
Thank you both, and congratulations on your degree. No worries. So yeah, we'll just have one quick question before we go to a break. So could you each share your favourite experience of being on the apprenticeship scheme?
Yeah, I'll go first if you want. Mine was definitely going to CERN for 6 weeks. Because for me, I was living at home at that point, so I'd not really sort of had to fend for myself much at all. So going out to CERN, living in various, we were treated quite nicely. We had various hotels and hostels around Geneva, and Geneva's a very nice place. So going out there, just sort of experiencing a whole different world and just working in a whole different group. We had different barriers, such as like language barriers and stuff to come across, which for me was sort of, like I say, something I've never experienced before. So yeah, it was really good, and would 100% recommend going out there if you can.
I think for me, definitely being offered the opportunity at the end of the scheme to work at RAL Space was for me the most exciting part, because it was the placement that I'd expressed the most in. Well, for me, was the most exciting placement, and I was really interested in a role up here. And I think what was really nice, they can see that as well, individuals as well, and they're willing to give people opportunities up here. So that was, yeah, for me, that was the most exciting bit, I think.